It's Sunday night. You sit down to plan your week and you have to fill out your work planner, and then your personal planner, and then your family planner, and then your side hustle planner, and soon enough you're filling out your dog's planner and feeling completely overwhelmed before you even started the real work. I get it. At least once a year, I find myself juggling too many planners and dropping my priorities in the process. But here's what I've learned. Simplifying down to one comprehensive planner doesn't mean you lose functionality. It means you gain mental space and actually use what you have. Today, I'm gonna show you how to fit your entire life into one planner and why that simplification might be the missing piece that makes your system finally stick.
Let's start by talking about the cost of complexity or complex systems. When you have a complex system where you are balancing multiple planners, you invariably add to your mental load. The mental gymnastics of which planner did I write that in actively depletes our decision-making capacity and our willpower throughout the day. Every time we remember which system holds what information, we're using that mental energy that could go towards actual productivity. Now, for those of you who love your multi-planner system and actually feel like it's very easy to use, I'm not really talking about you guys. I'm so happy for you, but I think most of us tend to reach for multiple different planners to manage the same amount of information when really we could just narrow down to one. I'm a good example of this. Earlier this year, I was in a bunch of different notebooks, including the manager's notebook, including an undated common planner. I also bought a Nulty. I had a bunch of planners in the beginning of the year. And I did not have a strong centralized system and was instead spread really thin, trying to update everything across these different planners. I had YouTube, my 9 to 5, my social life, all spread across these systems. And on top of that, I was learning to manage a team for the first time at my 9 to 5. So I was doing more, and I spent half my mental energy just remembering where everything lived. The calm I needed was not going to come from adding yet another planner. It was going to come from subtraction, from always knowing exactly where my productivity lives, trusting one system, trusting one book. And to do that, I needed a comprehensive enough planner that could actually hold everything that made me productive. Now, as I said, this won't work for everyone, but that's okay. If maintaining your planner system feels harder than using it, if you like multiple books, or you're I'm satisfied with work being in one planner, personal being in one planner, or my hobbies being in one planner, my productivity being in another planner, I'm not here to take that from you. Many of us have to have multi-book systems because we have work that's confidential, cannot make it home, or a personal life that's too personal to bring to the office, or any other variety of splits that we have to have within our planning life. But if maintaining your planning system feels harder than using it, this idea is worth exploring. So let's talk about what I actually mean by a comprehensive planner. Because I don't mean a big planner. There are lots of planners out there that are big and comprehensive. The Hobonichi Cousin is probably one of the most famous examples on PlannerTube. It is big, it has every single type of layout that you want, it's hefty, it is a complete planner for sure. But all of these you see on the desk before me, Wonderland 222 planner, Hobonichi Weeks, and a tiny little pocket common planner. All three of these are what I would consider a complete or comprehensive planner. Let's take this one for example. There are monthly spreads for anything big picture. There are weekly layouts for mapping your week-to-week rhythm. And then there are also a number of blank pages in the back that can just be used as blank pages or can be used as a daily layout because they have this timeline over here on the side. Planners like this also have a yearly layout up at the top. Some of them even have more detailed tracking, like the Wonderland has quarterly tracking. This is what I would consider a complete planner, but also the Hobonichi Weeks has all of those things too. It has a yearly planner, it has a monthly spread, it has a weekly layout, and then it has a bunch of notes pages in the back that you can use for notes or daily logging. And you guessed it, same thing with the tiny little common planner I have here. There is a yearly section. This one's broken down into quarters. There is a monthly section. There is a weekly section, and then more pages in the back that you can use for dailies or for notes. All of these are complete. Layouts matter way more than size. So if you're looking for a planner in which you can house multiple types of information across your life without running out of space for each function, I recommend getting a planner that has all of these major types of layouts, which not every planner has, not every type of planner has, but find one that has all these major types of layouts in a size that you like to write in. So for me, a good comprehensive planner is going to be as big as the Hobonichi Cousin. I need a lot of space. At the very least, it's going to be a B6 size. It's going to be, which is the regular common planner is like a B6 size. So ideally it's huge, but also it could be slightly smaller. But that's for me. For you, it might be much smaller than A5. You might actually think a Hobonichi Weeks like wallet-sized planner is going to be plenty of space for you. That gives you plenty of space to write what you need to write in the monthlies. And for yet some of you, a teeny tiny planner like this is going to feel really like home in terms of how much information you're trying to hold. Finding one that's comprehensive, that's complete, in a size you like is going to give you the best shot of making your one planner stick. Now let's talk about the secret, okay? The secret to making this work. The heart of making one planner work is that every layout needs a specific job, or rather, every piece of information you have to house in your planner needs one specific layout where that information is held. I'll give you an example. For the weekly section in my current planner, I use this to time track. I don't use it for anything else. It's just retroactive, looking back on my day, time tracking everything I did on that day. I have some fancy graphs over here so that I can make sense of this time tracking in real time, but there's no way I would time track in any other part of my planner because I already have that time tracking information on the weekly section. Another example is I used to time track in my daily section because there is a pretty good layout over here in the dailies for writing down a schedule. So I used to do my schedule and my time tracking on my dailies, but around halfway through the year, I just switched to doing notes in my dailies and priority task lists in my dailies. Those things are never ever going to make it into the weekly section of my planner because that information is already being housed later in the book in a daily spread. Again, this is not how I always use it. Earlier in the year, I was using the weekly spreads for my drop and find system, aka my task management. I'll leave a link to that video up in the cards if you're curious about it. But then halfway through the year, I switched and now my tasks are all in the back section of my planner. So you don't necessarily have to have, I have only one type of information on each layout, but every type of information should only be recorded in one place. The reason for this is that clear categories mean instant information retrieval. It is so much easier to remember budget stuff lives in my monthly layout rather than budget tracking is on the weekly page and budget totals are in the monthly. Just put all of your budget information into one layout. It's going to save you so much mental stress because your brain will start to trust that it's in that layout and know that there's one distinct place it can go to find it. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to use each layout for only one purpose. I've seen people who use their weekly layouts for time tracking, but also tracking where the planets are if they're into astrology or what the tarot card of the day is. And that's technically two different pieces of information, but they're not tracking that astrology information in the dailies or in the monthlies. They're just putting it in the weeklies. So just put the information in one spot. You can see in my dailies back here, I do actually use this page for multiple purposes. I use this page for task lists and notes, but task lists and notes are nowhere else in the planner. If I made a note, I know I have to find it in my daily section. If I put down a task, I know I have to find it in my daily section. If I was duplicating this across my weekly and my daily, or my monthly and my daily, I would be doing double work and never fully trusting either layout. But when each thing goes in one distinct place, it's just like organizing your house, right? Everything has a place, everything has a home, and you're always going to look for it in its home. And then using your planner becomes automatic. Finding stuff in your planner becomes automatic. No more decision fatigue. Now, that's not to say you will use absolutely every layout that you have, right? I am not a big monthly planner, and so my monthly sections are broadly very empty. Well, there's some on this section, but broadly they're very empty. I also don't really use yearly planning that much. So these pages in the front that are year forward are also not my favorite pages. I don't really use the yearlies, and that's fine. You don't have to use every single layout, but if I was going to use this for something, it sure would be a distinct and new purpose and not time tracking or notes or tasks. I would not put that in here because I already have a home for that elsewhere in my planner. I want to hop in here real quick to talk about your career. It's scary, I know. But for me, I spent years just winging it when it came to my professional development, and I really wish I had started thinking about it sooner. That is where today's sponsor, Strawberry.me, comes in. I just had another session with my career coach on Strawberry.me, and it was honestly eye-opening. I went in thinking I just needed some clear action steps for the next step in my career, but what happened was so much more valuable. My coach noticed something I didn't even realize. Every time I talked about asking for help or accepting support, my language turned really negative. She helped me see that I have this pattern of struggling to ask for help, and that's actually going to hold me back if I don't address it. And then we actually worked on some ways I could address it. That's what a career coach does. It's not therapy, it's not consulting, it's action-oriented and results-driven. Your coach helps you identify the thinking patterns that are getting in your way, build a strategic plan, and stay accountable so that you actually follow through. And unlike executive coaching that costs thousands, Strawberry.me makes this accessible to everyone. So head to strawberry.me/Rachel to take their quick matching quiz and get paired with your perfect coach. Your career is one of your greatest assets. Start treating it like one. Okay, let's get back to the video. All right. The next thing I'm going to say is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't journal in your planner. I know. It's shocking. I think it's very common in the planner space to want to find some way to journal or to memory keep in one's planner. And look, if you're really attached to that way of living, that is fine. I'm not trying to take any way that you love using your planners away from you. And as you can see from this spread, I have done it as recently as this past year. This I would categorize as a little bit of scrapbook journaling, plus here's some regular journaling about the month. I also journal on the back of postcards. Essentially, this is a way to memory keep or to hold information that I may want to look back on later so that I can know how I was feeling, how my month was going, what I did. It's very different than productive information. The task lists, the notes, the time tracking, the things that you don't really need after a year is past. Planners are working documents full of incomplete tasks and future goals. And at the year's end, you want to release all of that energy, all of the completed tasks that you've already done. You don't need the book anymore. Not that I'm saying to get rid of your books, do whatever you want with your books. But at the end of the year, we are ready to let go of all of that which has helped us achieve since we have now achieved and the year's now passed. But journals are experiences that you want to preserve. Mixing them in with your yearly tasks or yearly plans. I guess I was planning out my house on this day. Mixing these things in with that means keeping the old to-do lists you don't need or throwing away the entries that you want to save. Your response to this might just be like, Rachel, I'm never going to throw away any of my planners. And that's fine. Of course, that's fine. If you have a memory keeping or journaling practice inside your productivity books that you like, again, I'm not here to take what's working away from you, but I think a lot of us can feel like, especially when we are moving into one book, we can feel like, oh, okay, I also need to do all of my important memory keeping and my important journaling in the same book as my planner stuff. But I'm talking about creating one book for your planning, and then all of this journaling stuff can go somewhere else. This is largely based on personal experience. For me, I know that I have weeks here and there or days here and there where I have done a bunch of memory keeping like this, but I know I'm never actually going to come back into my planner, into the book that I use for productivity. I'm never going to come back in here and be like, oh, this is what December 2024 was like, especially because I am in no way consistent with the way that I journal. And so having it in a dated section, just because I feel like I have to, because I feel like the community does it, is not very satisfying for me. I would much rather put my journaling in an entirely separate book so that I can then go back to that book and reference it all at once when I'm old and gray and I'm trying to remember what I was like when I was young. I can go back to that unique book and flip through it without having to find the pockets of memory keeping in front of useless information about tasks that I completed and what laundry I had to get done on any given day. Long story short of it is, your planner is a tool to achieve an end. Your journal is a record to preserve. And flipping past deep emotional moments just to find your dentist appointment can feel like a weight that makes planning feel heavier than necessary, both emotionally and physically. I also know a lot of people who heavily scrapbook in their planners and then literally can't take them around with them to do the productivity information that they have in another part of their planner. If you've gotten through this section and you're like, Rachel, this is too hard for me. This is too controversial for me. I must journal in my planner. I must have my productivity information alongside my memory keeping information. I want to reintroduce you to the last tip, which was to make sure that no type of information is in two different layouts or two different spaces. At the beginning of this year, I was doing my scrappbooking in the monthly section, and I do have snippets of memory keeping in my daily section. And I know if I ever come back to this planner, my brain is going to just go to the monthly section for my memory keeping, and all of that information, all of that journaling is just so long gone by now. I'm never going to be able to find it again, and my brain has no idea where I put it or why. So if you want to journal alongside your productivity tools, I do recommend making sure you devote one type of layout or one section for that journaling. So for example, if I'm in this planner, maybe all of my task management and productivity goes in the weekly section, maybe all my journaling goes in the notes section, or maybe all of my memory keeping goes here and I just, write a little sentence about the date, and then all of my tasks are managed in the back section. Whatever works for you, I would say just pick a section so that you always know where that fun information is versus where that productive information is that you don't really need to look at when the year is over. Or if you can manage it, get two separate books, one for productivity, one for journaling. Even if that separate book is also a planner in format and style, it can really help to separate these things, because then you know which one to keep and which one is not really worth your time to go back through and look through from a nostalgic perspective. Okay, let's talk notes, because notes are tricky. They just happen, right? In meetings, while reading, during dinner. They don't really wait for the appropriate notebook. Sometimes you have a thought and you just must get it down no matter what is open on your desk. So the way I see it, there are two different types of notes. The first one is called scratch pad notes. These are productivity adjacent, quick captures that you need in the short term. These belong in your planner's notes section. It's alongside the information where it will actually be used and the information it actually affects. The working reference knowledge being inside your planner associates it with active planning, so it's a fine place to put it. But subject-specific notes for deep learning, research, and detailed study should go in a separate notebook. For example, I have what I call my thinking book for every type of note that is not active productivity oriented notes. This was my recent deep dive into the Enneagram. Shout out what you think my type is in the comments. Actually, I don't know if I want the reality of what you guys think my type is. I don't know. I've already asked for it. Just do your thing. My point is, this does not belong in my planner. This is just self-study, self-research, something I'm interested in that is for something else. I was actually doing this for a writing project so that I could map out some characters using the Enneagram, and that just really isn't in with my work tasks. It's just not in there, and I want to reference this later. It's a specific subject that I want to study. So this goes in a separate notebook for me that's sort of more dedicated to that purpose. The key question is, am I going to need these notes in a different context? If I will be learning about the Enneagram rather than checking my planner, it needs its own notebook. But if I'm working with notes, this was notes for something I was working on for a class I took, but if the notes I'm taking are related to my productivity, they belong in my one planner. All right, let's give it a good old-fashioned reality check before we end this video, shall we? Many people have multiple environments that genuinely need separate planners. Like I said, work, school, personal. If there's information that cannot cross the boundaries of these lines, I totally understand separate planners. And as I've already said, there are use cases where you want to have your productivity in one book and other things like journaling or deep note-taking in a completely different book. So I'm not saying you can only use one notebook for the rest of your life for everything. There are totally reasonable reasons you might have more than one planner, and that's fine. Or your brain just might not work well in one book. That's also fine. The goal here isn't dogmatic one planner living. It's consolidation within categories. So you might need a work and a personal planner, and that's fine. But you don't need 3 work planners, 2 personal planners, a habit tracker, a project notebook. You can probably simplify wherever you are at within your system. The principle is to limit yourself to create room to grow into working systems. Complicated systems create overwhelm, simplified systems create sustainability, and simplified systems get used more consistently because they are easier to remember, easier to activate on, and just generally easier to trust. Even just thinking about consolidating is progress. Awareness of what's working and what isn't is the first step to building something better and taking care of your productivity along the way.
Here's the thing about simplifying your planning system. It's not about deprivation or forcing yourself into a box that doesn't fit. It's about creating the mental space to actually be productive instead of spending all your energy maintaining complexity. Whether you consolidate into one planner or just reduce from 5 planners down to 2, any step towards simplification is progress. I've been consolidating a lot of my advice into its simplest form over on my newsletter, so check it out at the link below or by scanning the QR code on the screen. And of course, a consolidated system like this won't stick without a foolproof reset routine, so check out this video to learn one that you can do in under 15 minutes. As always, thank you so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.